Welcome to
Monster!
Mania!
I just realized I didn't take the Fandomology logo off that video, but regardless, hello everyone and welcome to the Star Wars Guys YouTube channel, where the Force is family, and welcome to yet another Monster Mania. In fact, this is a very big Monster Mania because it's Halloween. Yep, so happy Halloween, everyone, and I've said it multiple times. I've said it at least twice today, so I'll say it again. Happy birthday to Michael and Morgan, my two younger siblings, whose birthday it is today. But anyways, not only is this a big Monster Mania because it's Halloween and it's Michael's birthday, but we are officially closing the book tonight on the Heisei Era of Godzilla. So the two movies we are talking about tonight is Godzilla versus SpaceGodzilla and Godzilla versus Destoroyah. So as always, Crit, what would you say your overall thoughts on these two movies are?
Well, Godzilla versus SpaceGodzilla is all over the place. I don't know what they were kind of thinking, but I get the concept. It has a lot. I mean, the music's nice. Of course, it's Godzuki's movie. I hadn't watched this in a while. I just remember Godzuki was in it.
Yes.
And SpaceGodzilla kind of has cool powers and all. I think the biggest issue with this movie is the humans, because they try to fit so much, and it kind of takes away from Godzilla. Not like Mothra, but it's like all over the place till like the final battle. It goes from like studying. It goes from like, I can't even describe it. There's like a mad scientist in this movie.
Or someone that kind of appears out of nowhere.
Kind of goes crazy. The Force, Miki somehow uses the Force, which I thought was going to be. I'm going to say Destoroyah is more of the talk of the night than SpaceGodzilla.
Yeah. I think Godzilla versus SpaceGodzilla sucked 0 out of 10 because there was no mention of Godzuki wanting a cheeseburger. Crit knows what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the Godzilla Jr. Wants a Cheeseburger YouTube video, go look it up. It's well worth it. I'd show it on here, but I don't think we could get away with it. But anyways, in all seriousness, I do agree that Godzilla versus Destoroyah is easily the superior movie between the two that we're talking about tonight. In fact, I'm going to say it right now. Godzilla versus Destoroyah is now my new favorite Godzilla movie of all time. So we kind of been slacking on the movie rankings lately, so we're gonna have to update that at the beginning of at the end of the stream. But I can tell you right now that Godzilla versus Destoroyah is gonna get ranked pretty high, and we'll get to why here shortly. So right now, I'm working on spreading the link to the stream and all the different servers I'm part of. And I am part of a lot of servers. I should probably scale this back. But anyways, you tagged Phil to get in here.
I assume he's seen this one, so
yeah, he should have.
1 second, I need a drink. So.
Okay, that's fine. All right, I believe that is everyone. All right, so we're good to go. So with that, let's go ahead and get into these two movies, and I'll go ahead and start the recap while Crit's getting his drink. So we're starting with Godzilla versus SpaceGodzilla. So this movie is it's I think I'm going to go ahead and give my ranking out of 10 for this one. I'm going to say this one is a 6.5 out of 10. It is definitely enjoyable, but compared to the movies that had come previous to it, like Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, especially Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, this movie is something of a step down, and not in the same way that the movie that I call Mothra and Batra guest starring Godzilla is. No, Godzilla is still at least somewhat the focus as far as the monster side of things go. But as Crit was saying, the human involvement just kind of doesn't work, at least for me. So let's get into a little bit of what happens. And by the way, if it sounds like I am reading from Gojipedia, that's because I do need a little bit of a reminder. So, what's going on now with the Godzilla Countermeasures Agency is they're working on two different projects, Project T and Project M. Project M is, I guess you could say, a scaled back version of what Mechagodzilla was, called Mogera. And it's this mech suit that can split in half and can be used, hopefully, to take down Godzilla. Project T, however, and this is the really interesting one, Project T is all about implanting a telepathic, for lack of a better term, inhibitor chip on the back of Godzilla's head to directly control his thoughts.
It's weird. It's like...
Yeah. An interesting concept. I think it overstays it simultaneously overstays and understays its welcome. Wouldn't you say, Crit?
Yeah. Let's so we're going to be talking more about the problems of this movie, but
yeah, we do not hate this movie.
We did not hate this movie. If anything, it's more of a...
It's tough love.
It's more of a roadblock to Destoroyah. But so there's a scene where they're on the beach.
Mm-hmm. Actually, hold on. We got to backtrack for a moment. The movie actually starts with this giant crystalline structure flying through space. And we get a close-up of this crystalline structure, and we notice it has what looks like Godzilla's face in it. So that's our first glimpses of SpaceGodzilla right there. So I had to jump in there and say that, Crit, but What were you saying?
So we meet these two guys, I forgot, are from G-Force. They meet with this one guy named Akira Yuki, who's this like solid snake, like gruff, like, he's a veteran. He's used to the whole island. He's got a cigarette, and he wants revenge against Godzilla because his friend Gondo, who was his girlfriend's brother, died, and they reference Biollante, surprisingly.
Yeah, we have a clip for that, actually. So that's Gondo right there with the rocket launcher, the guy that says this iconic clip.
All this intravenous stuff's no good for you. Stick to smoking.
So that scene that we've memed to death at this point, that's Colonel Gondo. He died, as Crit said, in Godzilla versus Biollante.
No.
And now there is a Professor Gondo. Let me get her actual name. Dr. I'm not going to get her first name right, so I apologize. We'll just call her
Professor
Dr. Gondo. Yes. That is her brother that died in Biollante. And also Yuki's friend. So Yuki wants revenge. And he has developed this very specific type of bullet that he thinks will kill Godzilla. It's a bullet, I would say, I would equate its size to that of a 50 BMG, although the gun it's shot out of is certainly not a 50 BMG. But anyways, inside the tip of the bullet is what he calls blood coagulant. Now, I'm not a medical expert, Crit, but if I'm not mistaken, blood coagulant is supposed to cause blood clots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the idea was to kill Godzilla by causing him to develop blood clots, and apparently it would have only worked if Phil showed up and said anything that wasn't the most random thing possible. See, if Phil wasn't so random, I think Yuki would have managed to take down Godzilla. What do you think, Crit?
Yeah, just he says Scooby Doo. Well, then tell him, what about that Velma show? And then I don't like Scooby Doo anymore. I don't.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Phil. It's funny that you mentioned Scooby Doo. I'll tell you about it later in our chaos chat. But I got a story about someone mentioning Scooby Doo. But anyways, back to the movie. The only way that he thinks that the bullet can work, because there's apparently a spot under Godzilla's arm right about here where his natural skin armor scales, whatever it is at their weakest. So that's what he's aiming for. Now let me ask you this, Crit. Suppose that everything went according to Yuki's plan. Do you think that actually would have taken Godzilla down?
No.
Yeah. Because let's face it, he has survived far, far worse. Like, for example, in Mechagodzilla 2, that weird secondary brain that he has near his kidneys, that got ruptured, and he was able to bounce back from that thanks to the help of Rodan.
Or pretty much the last 20 minutes of Godzilla versus actually no.
No, don't mention that yet.
I will say this. There's this scene that goes on like forever. They're on a beach and they're doing the plan, and stuff happens. For one, Godzuki accidentally steps on the mine they're planning, and then Godzilla comes around and they're all scrambling around the beach, and then he takes a position, and then he gets on a motorcycle and they're scrambling again, and this goes on for like 15 minutes, and I'm still trying to figure out what they're trying to do.
And since you mentioned Godzuki, we do gotta also mention that since we first saw him in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, because in that movie he was about as tall as the average full-grown man. Now he's like triple that size, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. I like it. Oh, this is
Yeah, he has a much better design in this movie. In fact, can you real quick, Crit, change your avatar to a not edited version of that picture?
You mean this?
Yeah, that'll work. Pretty much that design that Crit likes to use for his avatar came from Godzilla versus SpaceGodzilla. Or, yeah, pretty much. This is, yeah. And here's the thing: you mix that in with the happy little da 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 music, and everything involving Godzuki when he's being his happy little go lucky self is like some of the best parts of at least the first half of the movie, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's false advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Because Godzuki's only in this movie for like 3 minutes.
That is true. So let's get to how that happens. So Godzuki, as you were saying, was walking along the beach and accidentally setting off these landmines that Yuki and the others had planted that were full of tear gas. And that ended up summoning Godzilla, which was their plan. They wanted to summon Godzilla, although they were in disagreement of what to do. Yuki wants to outright kill him. Meanwhile, the people from G-Force, including Miss Miki Sayagusa, the psychic, wants to implant that inhibitor chip on his back so that they can have a better control of him telepathically. So Godzilla shows up, and pretty much they're trying to get him in. Each different team is kind of trying to get him into the right position of where they need to aim for. And long story short, Yuki misses his shots, but the G-Force people manage to make theirs. And so Godzilla gets the chip implanted like right here in his head, and they test the workings, and it works. Godzilla does whatever Miki thinks for him. However, there's this one scientist that's part of G-Force that somehow, by flipping a whole bunch of switches, manages to overload the system, knocking Yuki out, and Godzilla's no longer under her control. And right around this time is when SpaceGodzilla arrives. Now, let me bring in a good picture of SpaceGodzilla so you guys can see what he looks like.
More like Magneto.
Yeah, I will say this. The design of SpaceGodzilla, I do really like.
He's missing the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, that is true. So, let me bring this in. That is what SpaceGodzilla looks like. So you can see he looks very similar, but he has a more crystalline form. And so the scientists at the G-Force Center are analyzing him, and they come up with the hypothesis that Godzilla's cells made it all the way to space on two separate occasions. The first time was when Godzilla defeated Biollante, and Biollante did that stupid little evaporate into pixie dust, yet you see the girl's face, that whole thing. Somehow Godzilla's cells were attached to that. And the second time was when Mothra went to space after her and Batra teamed up together to drop Godzilla into the ocean. So at some point, Godzilla's cells took hold of this crystalline structure, and the two sort of merged together and formed SpaceGodzilla. In fact, I was just now reminded of a line from, and you guys are probably going to hate me for mentioning this movie, from Superman Returns, the one with Brandon Routh and Kevin Spacey.
You mean the movie I always fall asleep to? And then,
Yeah.
And I'm like, why?
Okay.
Why should I should just watch the Christopher Reeves movie instead of this?
Okay, so the scene I'm talking about is when Superman has landed on that kryptonite island, and he's gotten weakened by it, and so Kevin Spacey's just kicking the crap out of him.
I'm surprised you remember
And
anything from that movie.
I like that movie, okay? I like that movie.
Man,
Yes, I think that's I think Brandon hot take. Brandon Routh is a better Superman
Nope.
than Henry Cavill.
Nope. I'm totally disagree.
Fight me.
No.
Fight
Brandon Routh has no acting. Yeah, I'd rather watch Cardboard wear a Superman cape.
But anyways, that disagreement aside, so the scene I'm talking about is when Kevin Spacey's beating the crap out of Superman on that kryptonite island, and in just how the kryptonite island was created was Lex Luthor had taken one of Superman's pure crystals from the Fortress of Solitude and put it around this hollowed out thing of kryptonite, and the two merged. And Kevin Spacey says, crystals, they're amazing, aren't they? They inherit the traits of the minerals around them, kind of like the son inheriting the traits of his father. That's kind of what's going on here with Godzilla's cells merging with with whatever that crystalline matter was. That's kind of what's going on
Maybe it was
here.
Krypton.
Yes. And that's how SpaceGodzilla was made. Oh, and by the way, SpaceGodzilla has a special form that he transforms into to fly. So let me bring up a picture of that real quick, because this I really like. So let me get this up here. So that's what SpaceGodzilla looks like anytime he takes off and flies. So let me ask you this, Crit. Between the two, his walking form and his flying form, which one do you like better?
Walking, because he's like Magneto.
See, I disagree. I like his flying form a lot. In fact, I could almost see a version of this movie where SpaceGodzilla stays in his flying form and doesn't land, and therefore stays like that the whole time, and that would make it an even harder fight for Godzilla. But anyways, back to what's going on with the humans. Mickey ends up getting kidnapped by this evil scientist and his henchmen and taken to some form of secret laboratory where she's held captive. Like she's tied down to a bed. And the other people find her and a shootout breaks out. And
I feel like this movie is what turned off Cash from Godzilla.
So, in order to explain what happens next, we got to go back to when we covered Godzilla versus Biollante, and we were first introduced to Mickey. You remember what I first said about her character, right, Crit?
Yes.
How it just seemed completely out of left field that there's this girl that is a psychic that is able to telepathically communicate with Godzilla. I was wrong with that being like peak ridiculousness, because then I learned about the cosmos, and yet what happens here tops even the existence of the cosmos just being something completely unexpected. Somehow Mickey is able to use the Force just out of the blue, or as she calls it, telekinesis. She uses the Force to lift herself and the bed off the floor so that her friends can rescue her and take down those guys. Why?
Okay, moving on. Godzilla comes to the city, and Mogira goes to space.
No. Hold on. I'm not done here. I'm not done here.
Oh boy.
I get it. Okay. I absolutely get it that these movies are not meant to be taken completely seriously.
Are you serious?
I get it.
Destoroyah is serious.
But at the same time, there's stuff that you just got to accept as part of the universe. For example, the existence of the cosmos, the existence of pretty much Mickey and her powers up to this point. Just buy into it and go on. But at the same time, I can only suspend my disbelief so much. And when you're just able to pull the Force out of your butt like that, just out of nowhere, with no explanation, no evidence that you could do it previously. And spoiler alert, we don't see her do it again in Godzilla versus Destoroyah. I'm sorry, I just cannot buy into that.
You could skip this movie and go straight to Destoroyah. It's not a bad movie, but it's ridiculous.
It's skippable.
It's what caused Cash not to watch Destoroyah with us.
And probably why he's not here tonight.
Yeah, he said he did not watch the movie. He just left the Discord on while he was doing something else. This movie is SpaceGodzilla.
We're not done with the movie yet. I'll get through it though as quickly as I can. So to make a long story short, Godzilla and SpaceGodzilla, have a fight. During this fight, Godzuki gets trapped by these crystals that SpaceGodzilla is able to grow out of the ground, and he pretty much stays there for the rest of the movie. We don't see him get rescued, do we? Grit, you there? He's probably talking to someone. But anyways, SpaceGodzilla starts raining destruction down on Japan. Him and Godzilla have another fight with the help of Mogera, and in the end, SpaceGodzilla is destroyed because Godzilla is smart enough to take down the different crystals in the tower that SpaceGodzilla is able to draw energy from. And so Godzilla pretty much wins the day. So, like I said, I do not hate this movie. I promise I don't. But literally that force scene alone, and the fact that it just comes out of nowhere with no explanation, is it hurts this movie for me. Any final thoughts, Crit?
Again, like, you could just skip to all the Godzuki scenes and then skip to the ending fight.
Yeah.
This movie's kind of like everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Like if you're gonna watch this movie, fast forward through just about all of the human stuff and just watch the monster stuff, because that's really the only stuff.
They had good stuff there. They had the friend, the Gondo, he was rough, and they had Miki. She's the main character, but they kind of just, when they have a mad scientist and he's like, ah, and then he's, I'm like, should I have really? And this is false advertising. In the poster, it makes it look like Godzuki's in the city fighting SpaceGodzilla. He's only in the first 30 minutes, and then he's at the very, very, very end.
Right.
Robbed of Godzuki.
So, what would you give this as a final score, Crit, out of 10?
I would give this a 4 or a 5.
4?
Yeah, that's that low. It's not bad. I would say 5. It's mediocre, but not bad.
I'm gonna be generous, and I'm gonna say 6 to 6.5, because I did legit like pretty much when SpaceGodzilla was on screen, I loved it. When he wasn't, I wasn't that big into it. So for SpaceGodzilla alone, I am bumping it to a 6.5. So we're done with that movie. Let's move on to the true main event. Pretty much what our background comes from. In fact, I'm gonna plug it in here as a overlay. That way you guys can see it. We're gonna be talking now about Godzilla versus Destoroyah. And you want to talk about night and day between these movies. You have one that's just completely bonkers and all over the place, to the single best finale to a movie series I have ever seen. Wouldn't you say, Crit?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Return of the Jedi. You gotta step aside.
You know what?
Maybe
I can't even argue that.
I'll say it's on the same level as Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. And real quick, and let's just jump into it. So the big story revolving around this movie, take a look at Godzilla here. You see all that orange on his body? Godzilla, basically his heart is a big nuclear reactor. And at the very beginning of this movie, there was a volcano blast on his island that pretty much sank it into the sea and exposed a whole bunch of pure uranium that he absorbed, and it's causing him to basically overload himself. And so we see in the very beginning, Godzilla is swimming through the ocean, and we see something we've never seen before with him, where where his body temperature is so hot, he is boiling the ocean around him. Because usually he's just kind of splashing through like you would wading through waist deep water. But no, he's like boiling the water around him. His skin is glowing hot orange, steam's coming off of him. His eyes have turned red. His fire breath has turned red. And it looks amazing, wouldn't you say, Crit?
Yes. Yes, it was, and then it's just pure agony and anger. You could tell from Godzilla. He's just
like this is the most out of control Godzilla has been, and not just like he's out of control as in we can't contain him. No, he does not have control of his own body, or barely does. So he springs up in Hong Kong and starts attacking that city. And so, of course, the G-Force unit is trying to figure out what's going on here, and thus they come up with the hypothesis that his nuclear reactor heart is melting down, and that if they don't do it, and that eventually he will not be able to contain all of the nuclear fission within him, and he will completely explode and take the whole Earth out with him. So they have to figure out a way to prevent that from happening. But at the same time, and again, you want to talk about night and day, where the human side of Godzilla versus SpaceGodzilla was very messy, very all over the place. The human side here, again, you could almost make the argument that this was some of the best human story in a Godzilla movie ever. Wouldn't you say, Crit?
Yeah. Yeah, I would. We watched it in dub, so I think we should watch this in Japanese.
I'd be down for another rewatch.
Oh, we got a Destoroyah in the.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my god!
Yep. And you know what? We have a clip for that. We actually have two.
All right, youngster, out you go.
Don't come back. Ever.
There you go.
This kind of ties into the original movie.
It does, because one of the main human characters was the grandson of Dr. Yamane, the doctor that was trying his best to preserve the life of Godzilla way back in 1954, when, of course, Godzilla was terrorizing the city and everyone wanted to kill him. And not only that, but there was heavy references to Dr. Serizawa, who was the guy with the eye patch who came up with the oxygen destroyer. And the reason that's brought up is because there's another scientist here in 1995 that has come up with something called micro-oxygen, which he initially invented as a way of, for lack of a better term, breathing new life into plant and animal life. But people are drawing a lot of comparisons between it and the original oxygen destroyer. And this lady here, she was, if I'm not mistaken, she was the same character that was there when Dr. Serizawa. Yeah, so
it's the same actress as well.
Wow.
That's the same actress that played her in the 50s and stuff.
And that's impressive. So yeah, there's a lot. Basically, Godzilla versus Destoroyah. Even if you want to argue that the Showa Godzilla is a different Godzilla than the Heisei one, this is like the Avengers Endgame of all the Godzilla movies up to this point. It all comes to a head here in this movie. So, in order to develop his micro-oxygen, this scientist was studying the effects of the one time that the oxygen destroyer was used to kill the first Godzilla, in that underwater area there. And he had collected different soil samples. And he had them kind of, for whatever reason, bouncing up and down in these test tubes. And in one of the test tubes, they read a faint blip of life. But suddenly it goes away. And a few days later, they notice that there's a hole in the bottle. So whatever was in there escaped. It's also worth noting, and this is probably the one thing I'm still confused about, having now seen this movie twice. What was it that caused, before this incident, what was it that caused the elevator shaft to melt?
On what?
You know that scene where everyone has to evacuate the facility because the temperature is rising badly and the elevator shaft is melting?
I think that's because the creatures were in there, weren't they? They're trying to escape.
This was before this.
I don't remember.
Yeah, so that's the one question that we have, and if anyone who knows this movie inside and out is willing to answer that question in the comments, we would be grateful for the knowledge. But anyways, while this is going on, there's this serious debate of whether or not to use the oxygen destroyer once again to end Godzilla once and for all and prevent him from melting down. Now, let me ask you this, Crit. Suppose they did exactly that. They got another oxygen destroyer exactly like the one that they used in 1954 and set it loose on this now melting down Godzilla. What do you think would have happened?
It would have killed him. Okay, it says here, Destoroyah was awakened by the presence of Dr. Ijuni's new invention, micro-oxygen. The Destoroyah colony attacked the underwater mining operation Tokyo Bay, melting the elevator shaft leading in and out of the mine.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the colony, all together, that melted it.
Okay. All right. So that makes sense then. So we have our answer now.
The still microscopic creatures reached the surface and entered a nearby aquarium, disintegrating the sea life there.
Yep, and this was a really creepy scene, by the way, where you have this guard who is walking through the underwater tunnels where you see the fish that are swimming all around, and you see the fish, and suddenly they're frozen in place, and they start disintegrating like that. And again, cast your mind back to the 1954. Seeing the fish disintegrate in that movie, because special effects were extremely limited back then, they pretty much had to show literally like that. But no, here you're seeing particles being flown off, and it's happening with all of the fish, and all the skeletons are getting collected down in the bottom of the water. So the scientists in G-Force take the footage of what happens and study it, and they find that this little tiny organism about that big flies past in one of the shots, and they study it and find that it looks kind of like it looks vaguely crustacean, whatever it was. And by the way, while all of this is going on, there's another subplot of Mickey and another girl who are trying to find where, quote, the little one is, because ever since his island got blown up, no one's seen him. And it's also revealed that, and I don't believe they were given actually, no, I take it back. It's also revealed that Mickey's powers, as far as being psychic, are fading away. And the way that they imply it is that it's something you grow out of. Is that the impression you took from it?
Yeah, I like it better than force powers.
Yeah. I bet they probably saw... I wonder if they saw, in hindsight, how stupid the whole force power thing was in Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla and decided not to bring it back here.
Yeah.
Because think about it. Imagine if someone you knew was just able to do telekinesis all of a sudden. How? That's not
But
something that you just. They basically
tell
would never have a normal life after that.
I don't even think in Dragon Ball Z, where most of the characters have telekinesis, they can sense things that they don't have force powers. They can fly, but they
Exactly.
don't have force powers. They can't
Yeah.
pull things. They have to. It's just weird. It's just silly.
Very weird. However, while all of this is going on, we find out that these creatures that attack the aquarium are continuing to grow and evolve, and there's multiple of them. And eventually, they are discovered at this one industrial plant. And what follows is a sequence very much like out of the Alien movies, where you have all of these paramilitary people that are fighting these giant insectoid looking things that have mouths that come out of their mouths in the dark, and they're getting dragged into all of these different places and such. And here's the thing. Every single one of these creatures, their version of the atomic breath, we find out, is an oxygen destroyer. So we don't really see it, but I can only assume anytime a person gets hit by their breath, they pretty much disintegrate right then and there, the same as the fish did, right?
Yeah.
So they try their best to fight these things off, and they do manage to make them retreat for a while, and thus their attention for the moment turns back to Godzilla. And they come up with a plan to... They don't want to use the oxygen destroyer at this point, so they come up with a plan to freeze Godzilla with the new and improved Super X3. So, hold on a second, we got someone in the chat. Hello, real quick, to Coffee on Korriban. Thanks for joining. By the way, man, sorry I didn't tune in until the very end with your stream, man, but I'm looking forward to whatever song that was that you were writing. So anyways, they come up with this plan to use the Super X3 aircraft that they had just developed to freeze Godzilla because it has special weapons that aren't in any way heat-based. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the technical term for them is ULT weapons, ultra-low temperature weapons. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the Super X3 goes out and takes on Godzilla while he's still in the water. And Godzilla eventually succumbs to the effects of the freezing, and he's pretty much frozen solid, and for now, it lowers his temperature. But it doesn't keep him down. And real quick, Coffee says, it's all good, I may get it recorded and put out a music video before Mando 3 comes out. Awesome. So, while this is going on, eventually, Mickey manages to find, quote, the little one. She manages to find Godzuki, who is not even Godzuki anymore. Because he also was affected by the island's explosion and that uranium that was released, and that caused him to grow up into definitely older than what he was in the last movie, but not quite an adult like his daddy. So you could say he's more of a teenager, right?
Yeah. He looks more like Godzilla now, so he's not Godzuki anymore.
Yeah.
He's Godzilla.
And he's also not really he's not really bothering with the people. He's just kind of minding his own business. So it's noted that he's heading northeast to, quote, his nest. And so Godzilla changes course. But those weird insect things attack again. And all the freezing technology is used on them, but it's no good. because again they realize, oh crap, we're dealing with an oxygen destroyer, and that's where it come in the English dub they call it Destroyer. But I did some research about this movie before we got on stream and actually found out
Let's destroy it.
that the name Destoroyah came about because Toho couldn't trademark the word destroyer, so they made their own word.
Metallica. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Metallica?
Not quite.
Mm.
So, eventually, in order to get out from under the freezing weapons, all of the different insects coalesce into one super being that can change forms between this crab / spider like thing to a flying form. And it is wreaking havoc on Japan, and it picks a fight with Godzilla Jr. And it's very clear that Godzilla Jr. is outmatched. And we get, at least up to this point in the movie, one of the most brutal scenes that we've ever seen in a Godzilla movie, where when it's in its spider crab form, Destoroyah uses its mouth jaw thing, whatever the alien term is, the technical term, and uses it to basically penetrate Godzilla Jr.'s chest and inject oxygen destroyer molecules into him, pretty much poisoning him. And you see it go in, and you see the blood come out. It is brutal. But by this time, Godzilla has caught up, and he basically says, "Get off of my son," and beats up Destoroyah and sends him into this one building. And the building starts burning. And while Godzilla and Godzilla Jr. are having something of a reunion, Destoroyah comes out in his final form. And again, he attacks Godzilla Jr. first. And again, in my research in prep for this stream, I found out, according to Gojipedia, in fact, let me see if I can actually read it. It's talking about the character of Destoroyah. Here
the most evil
Yes.
appearance in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The way he
It
comes in, so evil.
So let me bring this on stream and I'll read it for you. So it says, Destoroyah is often considered one of Godzilla's most merciless and evil foes, along with the Showa King Ghidorah and SpaceGodzilla. Unlike monsters that kill and destroy unintentionally and act only out of instinct or under mind control, Destoroyah seems fully aware of the death and destruction he causes and takes pleasure in causing it. His cruelty is most visible when he attacks Godzilla Jr. and later kills him while the latter is trying to reunite with his father. While Godzilla is grieving over his son, Destoroyah attacks him on 2 separate occasions, even appearing to laugh while he drags Godzilla by the neck. This makes Destoroyah only the second kaiju to attack Godzilla both emotionally and physically after SpaceGodzilla. So, yeah, we've said it multiple times, both on and off stream. Destoroyah is pretty much the final boss of all of the Godzilla movies. And I could see them bringing back Destoroyah, like in the Legendary movies, whenever they wanted to bring an end to those movies. I'm sure he'll play the role of final boss again. Wouldn't you say, Crits? Crit, are you there?
Oops, I was muted. Maybe. I mean, like, it kind of, like, his design reminds me of a mix of the Balrog and, to a lesser extent, the Devil. But they wanted to make it known that this is just pure evil, a pure evil monster. And that, like the way you can't hear it, but like from this image, I could just hear the music. It goes dun, and then the fire, and then you see the form right there on my picture right there.
Do you have a clearer picture by chance?
Oh wait. I got hold on. I got it right here. Destoroyah.
Yeah. And apparently I didn't know this too. Apparently Destoroyah is self-regenerating. It has the ability to heal itself. That I didn't know.
No. Like, if you have reservations about the Godzilla films, and when you say, I get so annoyed when people say, oh, they're like Power Rangers. Well, I'm like I said, well, watch this movie, just mind the human scenes. They can be slow at the beginning. When it gets to the last 40, I think the final battle of this movie is the final 40 minutes. It keeps going on. It goes on continuously.
It does, and it is, and here's the thing: it does not drag at all.
It does not drag.
But that battle needs that 40 minutes to properly convey what it's doing. So, eventually, unfortunately, Godzilla Jr. succumbs to his injuries and dies. And we see Godzilla, again, still melting down. And it's revealed during this fight that when Godzilla's internal temperature reaches 1200 degrees, that's when he completely melts down. And he won't explode at this point, but he will somehow melt through the core of the Earth and destroy the Earth that way. So they come up with this plan to, again, use the Super X3 right when he melts down to try and minimize the damage.
I'm going to risk it.
Please don't show it. If that's what you're thinking.
Which one?
Godzilla actually disintegrating.
No, not that one. I mean this scene.
Oh, okay. Well, So please don't hurt us, Toho. But yeah, look at this. Godzilla is dying here, yet he still has the wherewithal to look at the body of his son, and you see genuine grief. Like, again, I'm actually gonna pull back to another scene from Godzilla versus King
read
Ghidorah.
that he tried to revive his son with his nuclear breath, but it didn't work.
Right. And here's the thing. Let's directly compare. So we have, and I'm gonna play this scene on mute, that way, at least for the music side of it, it won't ding us there. So let's directly compare that scene to what I'm about to bring up here from Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. And we've shown this scene before, so it's nice to go back and watch. So now bring that clip back up again, please, Crit.
Let me bring it up. There was a comment that I'm trying. I think it's right here, isn't it? Like, it's slow, but
again, look at, you can tell that Godzilla, in spite of the fact that he's dying, still cares about his son and is doing everything that he can to try and revive him, but it doesn't work. And so, unfortunately, Destoroyah interrupts this again. And during, I guess you could say, round 2 of their fight,
he's grieving right here. So
yeah, he's clearly grieving. And on top of this, and
I read a comment a while ago. I was trying to find it, but it said this: when he saw his son and he pretty much died here, there was nothing much left.
Yeah. Because he truly had nothing else left, you could say, to fight for. And any fight that he did do with Destoroyah after this, you could almost make the argument of, at least in his mind, it's like, I'm gonna die, but I'm taking you with me. So that's pretty much what happens. Godzilla once again engages in a fight with Destoroyah, gets his butt whipped, and that's something else that you mentioned that's interesting, Crit. Destoroyah was the one monster Godzilla never could beat, because the military beats Destoroyah with their freezer weapons. But by that point, unfortunately, it's too late for Godzilla, because he reaches his 1200 degrees internal temperature, and so he starts melting down. And again, the military starts hitting them with their freezer weapons, but the scene is not this triumphant scene. It's a very somber scene. Because again, Godzilla is grieving not only the fact that he's dying, but his son has died. But the military, because of the dangerous nature of his meltdown, cannot afford to give him a quiet death. They have to hit him with everything they've got until, finally, the skin starts melting off of his flesh. And we zoom out and we see his entire body at this point now is glowing red. There's this burst of orange matter that comes from his chest. That's his heart exploding. And as he does that, he gives one final roar that gets cut short as literally the skin from his entire head falls down. His vocal cords are disintegrated into nothing. And soon his skeleton structure follows. And like I said, it is not a triumphant moment, but it's perfect. This is the perfect ending for Godzilla. Wouldn't you say, Crit?
Yes, especially what happens after.
Mm-hmm. Because the humans make a good point. You know, Godzilla's done, but all the radiation he released has now made Tokyo uninhabitable. We should never have dabbled in nuclear technology. But all of a sudden, the radiation levels start dropping. And it's revealed that Godzilla Jr. survived and absorbed the radiation of his dad and literally turned into the spitting image of his dad. And that's where the movie ends. That last 40 minutes is the reason why this is my favorite Godzilla movie of all time.
I said that it reminded me a lot of the Superman quote. I thought it was that from Star Wars, but I remembered it from Superman. The father becomes the son, and the son becomes the father.
Yes, that is a perfect comparison, and it's why I wish so badly that they didn't end the Heisei arc here. Because yes, this is a great ending. But after they were done with their hiatus, and by the way, hello to Legendary Tron, they could have picked up the story right where it left off and brought in another monster from the Showa era, or create a whole new one for the new Godzilla to fight. Like, for example, imagine if the new Godzilla fought against Gigan, for example, or King Kong, or Megalon, or Hedorah, or whoever else they happen to make up.
My head canon is, we haven't watched it yet, but in Godzilla 2000, that is Godzilla Jr.
Mm-hmm.
That's my head canon. But
okay,
yeah, this is a 10 out of 10. I wish I wish we watched this one with Cash, and it might have. He kind of dropped us like a rock after SpaceGodzilla.
Yes, unfortunately.
This is the movie where when people say Godzilla is just guys in suit, I say, well, if you should just watch this and shut your mouth.
Yes. So, as always, here is my movie ranking list. Godzilla. First, let's rank Godzilla versus SpaceGodzilla. I'm gonna be okay. So I'm gonna do this. I'm actually gonna rank Who? I'm gonna rank it between Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, and Godzilla 1954.
Oof, even lower than wait,
Yes.
where's Godzilla? Where's Mothra? Where's Godzilla Mothra?
Here they are right here.
Hmm.
Oh, and by the way, we're gonna throw this one in there just for fun. Godzilla raids again.
Oh, you know what? We should cover that right now.
What is there to cover? Godzilla comes back, he fights Anguirus and takes too long to get frozen.
Okay, quick review. So Paul's like, hey, why did we skip Godzilla raids again? I know you wanted to watch King Kong versus Godzilla when we did the King Kong films, but why did we skip that? I told him that's the most boring movie I've ever. It's like the most boring Godzilla movie ever. I don't care if it's black and white. It's just boring. And he didn't believe me. So we sit and it's worse I would say it's even worse in Japanese dub. Now it's fun to watch bad movies. I don't think this is a bad movie. Well,
it's boring.
It's actually, yeah, it is bad, but it's clear that they made this right after this is it. So Ishiro Honda is the director of all the Showa classic, most of them. He did not direct this. It was clearly someone who don't know how to direct those monster Godzilla movies, because for one, all the Godzilla fights, as brutal as they were sped up. They were shot weird, but that's not the issue. Anguirus is fine, and all. It's not the issue with this movie. This Godzilla raids again is so. I want to cuss, but it's so boring. It is so boring because there is this story with this pilot and a love interest, and then criminals. There is no music. There is no classic Godzilla music. It is
when we were watching it, I had my guitar and I was playing, at least attempting to play Black Sabbath tunes over it.
There was more music. There was more music coming from him than this movie.
Yeah, like Godzilla is going, and I don't know if I can do it. I'm going. Like attempting to play Paranoid.
And I even told Paul during stream, Paul, where are we watching this? Why can't we just watch SpaceGodzilla?
So you're welcome. So you're welcome, everyone that freaked out about it. Alien is no longer at the bottom. Godzilla raids again is at the bottom.
It's the worst of not worse than Godzilla's Revenge, because I'm hyping Paul for that one, but it is
what?
Godzilla's Revenge.
What era is that in?
It's in Showa, in it.
Is that the one where it's all in the head of a young boy, where Godzilla helps his son fight a bully?
Yes, and Godzuki sounds like Goofy from Disney.
Uh-huh.
My father. But anyway, to finish off, Godzilla Raids Again ends with a 30-minute scene where they try to bury Godzilla in an avalanche. It goes on, and that's pretty much the movie.
Yes. So, yeah, like I said, Godzilla Raids Again is at the bottom of the list. However, Godzilla versus Destoroyah, and I'm about to make a pretty bold claim here, so stay with me. I'm putting it at number 2.
I guess same level as Raffican.
Yes. I love this movie that much. So yeah, there goes another chapter into my highly controversial list.
You should put Destoroyah over Raffican. See how people.
No, I'm not that stupid. But anyways, So that is the stream, and let's talk about this, Crit. Let's talk about, before we go, the Heisei era as a whole. So so pretty much from 1984 to 1995. What's your take?
Well, I said my favorite movie, even though I like Destoroyah, I love Destoroyah. My favorite Godzilla movie is Return of Godzilla, and I stand by that. I will say the Heisei films are classic. Pretty much when you think of Godzilla, you think of those.
Yeah.
There's a lot to love from. It was pretty much, it was a good reboot of the Showa movies. You got it was a pretty.
This is just the Heisei ones that I have pulled here.
Now, I will say, even though Biollante can be weird, I felt like the more I think about that, that's just more charming than. A lot of people say Biollante is one of the best Godzilla movies ever made.
It's up there for sure.
It's up there. I can understand why people love it because of the daughter-father relationship, and there's a lot of heart to it. I think they got their footing right with Godzilla after Biollante. They had got their footing right.
Mm-hmm.
I think they might have, like, this is the era when sci-fi and Dragon Ball Z was popular, so they had like stuff similar to that. Godzilla was, a big landmark in Japan back then. But I will say Heisei is my favorite. Although I do like a lot of the Millennium films. A lot of those films don't have an arc like these movies do, because these movies are basically a series. The Millennium movies are like Godzilla movie after Godzilla movie, where it's kind of just standalone each time. Kind of like the Showa films. Although the Showa films are kind of like a universe too.
Yeah, they follow up on themselves, kind of. At least from what I've seen so far.
But yeah,
so,
to me, in terms of being a classic series, I would say Heisei fits the bill. It reminds me of the original trilogy of Star Wars.
Yes.
So
as you can see here, I have a tier list just for the Heisei era. So let's go through each of them and place where we want to put them. So I believe this one is Godzilla Returns 1984.
No, that's Godzilla King versus King Ghidorah.
Oh, then is it this one?
Yeah, that's Godzilla Returns.
Okay. All right. I think you and I can both agree this is an S tier.
Yeah, that's an S tier.
Yes. Godzilla versus Biollante. I'm thinking A tier. What do you think?
A tier, yeah.
Okay, A tier. Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. I'm going to go again S tier.
S tier, yeah. Even though the human stuff's kind of weird. But not as bad as Space Godzilla. I'll take droids and over force powers.
Make my day. All right, so Godzilla versus Mothra and Batra with Godzilla as the special guest star.
C.
Okay. That's
Mechagodzilla
versus
2.
What do you think?
S.
Okay. Godzilla versus Space Godzilla.
D.
And then Godzilla versus Destoroyah. S.
Maybe front of the line.
oh, easily. So that's how we would rank the that's how I think we would rank the Heisei era movies. And yeah, so the Heisei era is done. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And honestly, it was just fun watching these with you, man. And I've probably said it before, but I'll say it again. Thank you for pestering me long enough to actually sit down and watch these.
We're
I'm
halfway
glad.
through all of the Godzilla movies, so we're
Yep.
halfway through. Oh well, we still got the anime because we will watch the anime series once all the movies are done. The one on Netflix, which I have.
Yes.
I wouldn't recommend the anime films because those are sucky, but we'll watch those too, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. So real quick, let's real quick talk about sort of what's going to go forward with Monster Mania. We will of course finish the Showa movie. So what's the one that comes after Ibara?
Your favorite? Yeah. Just. I think that is Son of Godzilla.
Okay, so that's where we're going next, and then what's the one that comes after Son of Godzilla?
Destroy All Monsters, which is kind of the Avengers Godzilla film. So
okay, funny story. Last night I was watching Pop Culture Breakdown, and I sent Doomcock a super chat asking him what he thought of the Godzilla movies, and of course he likes them. And he said actually that Destroy All Monsters was his favorite.
Yeah,
So,
I'm glad Doomcock likes them.
Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward into getting into those. So we'll finish all the way through the Showa era, and then even if I got to do it by myself, I will talk about Godzilla 1998 with Matthew Broderick. Then we get into the Millennium era, and then do we want to do the anime stuff before or after we cover the legendary stuff?
After Shin
After?
Shin Godzilla, I think will be the last movie we do. We might do the anime movie trilogy again. I have not really seen those, and then we'll do Singular Point. I think Cash might like that one, Singular Point, because that's the anime series on Netflix that I've not watched yet. So,
and then maybe we could also get into. I know that Mothra and Rodan had their own standalone movies before we got into the Godzilla verse. So maybe as like one-offs we could cover those. I know we also got to watch Godzilla versus King Kong.
Yeah, maybe we should do King Kong next because I know Phil wants us. We'll do the
Here. I got an idea. Let's triple up and do King Kong, Mothra, and Rodan.
Okay.
And let's tentatively set the date for that as next Monday.
Okay. We'll let Phil know. Hopefully Phil will join us for that one.
Yes, hopefully.
We'll push Cash. I'm sure Cash will join us for King Kong.
As long as Cash doesn't whine about it.
Hey, I can be I can sound like Cash Money. Did you know that?
Do it.
Let's hear it.
Oh my god. No. They put woke stuff. They put woke stuff in my Star Wars.
Fun fact, I was also clean shaven there. But another idea I had for Monster Mania that I thought of today that I wanted to run by you. Once we're done with like the kaiju monsters, what if we got into some of the horror monsters? Like, for example, the Boris Karloff Dracula, because I've never seen those.
Yeah, we could do those.
I know tonight's Halloween, so it would be past Halloween, but still, you can watch.
It'll be a while before we get to those because we got backlog.
We do. I want to see that. I want to see what Christopher Lee does as Dracula. And fun fact, I actually saw the first half or so of the Gary Oldman Dracula movie, but this was an English class, so we didn't have enough time to finish it. So I would want to see the rest of that. And
that movie's not even accurate to the book.
I know. Would you say Teen Wolf counts as a monster movie?
I mean, a tribute. There's a bunch. I do want to like. There's a couple good. Ishiro Honda still did some kaiju movies that are not Godzilla. He did Space Amoeba. He did King Kong Escapes.
Yeah.
He did the War of Gargantuas, which I think you would like. And then he did Frankenstein. There's also he did a Frankenstein movie where Frankenstein versus a giant monster, and he grows 100 feet. I like that one.
Okay.
Frankenstein versus Bear Gun.
And let me ask you this one too. Do we also at any point want to get into Gamera?
I again the 90s movies, but the compared to the Showa movies, the old Gamera movies are more for I don't know. They're very hokey.
Okay.
We could watch the Mystery Science Theater episodes of them.
Maybe. At the very least, just for fun. But yeah, all that stuff is kind of what we're brainstorming right now for the future of Monster Mania. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and shut it down for the night. And real quick, before we go, I will remind everyone that tomorrow, Tuesday Night Trek is starting at a very special time of 5 p.m. because that's also going to be my birthday stream. So we're going to cover 3 episodes of TNG, 3 episodes, the first 3 episodes of Deep Space Nine, and then the stream's just going to go from there, and then whatever happens will happen. And I will go ahead and say this too. This was actually, I believe, Daryl's idea from the Vac Tube. Either Daryl or Matt Cave, one of the two. He came up with the idea of me putting a PayPal link or Venmo something for people to send tip money. So I may start doing that with that stream. So there will be, if I can figure out a way to do it through Venmo, because with all this PayPal stuff, I prefer I prefer Venmo anyways over PayPal. I may start implementing a tip jar into our streams through Venmo if I can figure out a way to do it. So with all of that, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Rest in peace, Heisei Era Godzilla. Long live Godzilla Jr., because the Force is family. See you guys later.